Once again, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. My name is Baron Borman from Ramjack Technology Solutions. I welcome each and every one of you guys. Just some housekeeping with regards to the webinar. We'll be playing each one of the presenters' recorded videos. We do still live in a day and age that load shedding can jump on top of us. So I'm on backup power, but I know that some of the panelists who's presenting today is scattered right around the country. So I've actually asked them to do a pre-recording of their presentation. All of them are actually here. I welcome TJ, Yaku, and then Julian joining me for this webinar. They will introduce themselves during their presentation. And then lastly, I'm going to ask if you are wanting to ask some questions, there should be a Q&A box where you can type your question in, or alternatively, you can just stand by. The last 10 minutes of the webinar, we're taking some questions. We'll answer the questions that gets written in the Q&A box best as possible, and within the time frame that is still available. I want to let you guys all go at 12 o'clock. So without further ado, I'm going to just kick off on my side. Thank you. Good day, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I'm Baron Borman from Ramjack Technology Solutions, and it's an honor to have you with us today. In this session, we'll be showcasing how to enhance occupational hygiene in the mining operations by leveraging cutting-edge solutions for ventilation and gas monitoring. Our aim is to demonstrate how these technologies can be tailored to tackle your specific challenges and needs. Thank you for dedicating your time to join us. We trust that you'll find this webinar both insightful and engaging. So let's start. The efficient use of technology is a top strategic priority for mining operations worldwide, irrespective of the location, commodity, or mining method. Leaders across the industry understand that achieving productive, safe, and sustainable operations hinges on the efficient application of technology. This leads us to a crucial question though. How can we effectively implement the right technologies in your mining operation? Well, Ramjack is there to help. Ramjack is a specialized system integrator and operational technology contractor dedicated to production and safety technologies for the mining industry. We exist to help mines realizing the true value of operational technology. We do this by providing best-of-breed systems and expert localized services to fill the gap between what technology promises to deliver and what actually happens on the ground. Our real-time technology solutions, methods, and programs guarantees improvements in safety, productivity, and efficiency, and are designed to support every miner or mine manager's objective to monitor, manage, and optimize anything that matters in real time. Mines are constantly under pressure to achieve production goals without sacrificing safety. But without a comprehensive plan for technology integration, the digital mine of the future remains out of reach. Getting technology right in the mining industry is sometimes extremely difficult. It's an ongoing struggle for mining companies and original technology manufacturers alike. High tech and mining are polar opposite industries with different behavioral characteristics and different key success factors. Fortunately, we aren't the only organization who has set out to address this challenge. And thanks to mining companies, technology manufacturers, consultancy houses, and research institutes, there are plenty of expert viewpoints and inputs available to assist us along the way. Ramjack approach is one of collaboration, an approach designed to fill the gap between various experts in both the high-tech world and the mining worlds. One that looks both horizontally across the mine value chain and vertically deep into the various silos, requiring decades of specialized know-how. This helps us solve immediate mining challenges that has an impact on the results today, while also ensuring successful adoption of a longer-term technology roadmap utilizing even the most advanced technology available today to us. In short, Ramjack bridges the critical gap between that technology manufacturers and mine operations. With regional operations and long-standing technology partnerships in most of the major mining markets in the world, Ramjack is not only able to ensure access to qualified mining technology resources, but we're also able to source solutions from across the globe. Realizing the true value of operational technology in the mining industry necessitates accountability across the entire mining value chain. Ramjack uses a unique set of pragmatic and evolutionary methodology to deliver successful technology adoption. So how do we do it? By looking at our three core pillars within our business: advise, execute, and optimize. But what does that mean? So whatever we would advise for instance, like a technology selection, we would execute by getting our hands dirty, doing the implementation, integration, and being able to provide support on that solution. But also, lastly, to help optimize that solution by providing 24/7 monitoring, system execution, and process optimization, including data analytics and looking at trend identifications. The key to achieving successful productivity increases and sustainable safety performances in the mining industry is access to reliable real-time data. While the availability of large data sets collected over time helps long-term decision making, especially where advanced data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning can be applied, actual and immediate improvements to productivity and safety performances can only be achieved when the right data is available to the right people at the right time. At Ramjack, being pragmatic is about improving decision making at the mining phase through actionable insight that are easily enabled by technology. We leverage technology to empower decision makers with timely actionable insight. Whether it is a ventilation officer receiving proactive updates on re-entry times to the mining area from the comfort of his office, or an engineer accessing critical environmental data from an underground instrument via a reliable sensor network, our solutions ensures that the right information reaches the right people when they need it most. We provide a comprehensive range of best-in-class products and services designed to enhance mine production and safety. Our solution honeycomb showcases the interconnected nature of mining operation systems, offering a visual representation of the extensive and diverse solutions within the Ramjack portfolio. Through pragmatic and evolutionary technology recommendations, Ramjack guarantees a return on investment within a one budget cycle. We have worked with many of the world's most renowned mining companies. Our project range from small bespoke instrumentation solutions to large mine-wide integrated system deployments, and everything in between. Whatever your mining technology related challenge is, we appreciate the opportunity to discuss it with you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to our introduction to Ramjack Technology Solutions. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can check out our website, www.ramjacktech.com. Next up, I'm handing over to Jaco Swartz. He is the Senior Legal Advisory and Managing Director of Legislative Compliance Specialist Pty Limited. And Jaco will be talking about understanding the legal amendments and the impact on the occupational hygiene in mining. Thank you very much, Jaco.
Specifically for the opportunity to have a chat with you today. Yeah, exciting topic for me, but there's a bit of a disclaimer that I have to go into first. I've been told that lawyers have many problems, but some of the main ones is number one, we always like our own voices. So I have 10 minutes to try and share something with you, which I think is absolutely critical. That's the first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is that, lawyers always think that their opinions matter most. And the topic that we're going to discuss today is far bigger than the law. Um, and I'll talk about that in a second, the why portion of this. But I want to put a caveat in here, and that is that we are going to listen to some amazing experts in their respective fields when we talk about occupational hygiene and environmental engineering. And my portion of that is a small part, and that is the why. And I want to address that now. The question is, why are we here to talk about this? And I think there are two elements to this. Firstly, we are talking about this topic of monitoring occupational hygiene exposures, firstly, because it's the right thing to do. We are talking about the impact that our mining operations have on people, paramount. We have to minimize and eliminate. The second portion of that is because the law says so. And in terms of context, what I would like to talk about next is just a bit of history. I want to go to talk about how we end up in the situation that we are in now. And I want to share some shocking statistics with you. If we go back to 1905 in the South African mining context, now this is a different world, it's a different time, a different era. I want to share some statistics. Statistically, in the year of 1905, we had 678 fatalities, meaning dead bodies on a mine, 216 persons permanently disabled. So that's the easy part, and I say this with respect. That's the easy part because we have a body. It relates to the safety element of a fall of ground underground, or um, the physical impact that we have on people. But there's another element to this, and those are deaths that are not related to accidents. This is scary. In 1905, we had 55.9 deaths per 1,000 employees, not attributed to fatalities due to accidents on the mine. That would include occupational health and hygiene. So, as context, that is terrible. What we'll do next is just to contextualize and put that into perspective by looking at where we are today. And there's good news. And the good news is that in the year that has just passed, in 2024, it is the year in which we have recorded statistics in the South African mining industry. Now, the formal statistics go back to the Chamber of Mines, the Transvaal Chamber of Mines in 1896, oh, sorry, 1886. So we have a bit of data here. And the good news is we have, if you look at the statistics, in December had up to 41 fatalities. Now, that is a tragedy. It's 41 times that someone had to inform a family that their breadwinner is not coming home. But it implies that as time has gone by, as a mining industry, we have become far more efficient and successful in managing the impact that we have on our employees. Now, there is some good news. Obviously, that is not our goal. The goal is zero harm. But it's quite ironic that while we have seen a dramatic increase in the efforts that we put in place on mines to ensure safety of persons, we have at the same time an increased focus on the legal environment in terms of punishment. And I'm going to share this with you in the next couple of minutes. And basically, what we will talk about in terms of our program today is the amendments that we have, which are due, and we expect it to be early this year, to the Mine Health and Safety Act itself. Now, this goes back some time. It has its genesis in 2009 in the proposed amendment bullet. It's gone through a couple of iterations. We are now at the final stage of amending the Act. I'll talk about that in a bit of a context and how that relates to occupational hygiene and environmental engineering. We also have regulations that are up for amendments, and specifically Chapter 2 of the Minerals Act. Now, those of you who have carried or do carry legal appointments currently, likely it is that a part or maybe all of your legal appointment stems from Chapter 2. It's been there forever. It is a legacy piece of legislation. It comes to us via the Mines and Works Act and then the Minerals Act. It's outdated. It's old. This is changing. And then there's also late last year, when I say late last year, September, October, in the various provinces in South Africa, we had a special instruction from the Chief Inspector of Mines that related specifically to the topics we discussed today. So in terms of our program, that is more or less where we're going to go. I know the time is an issue. Let's jump straight into it. Number one, the Mine Health and Safety Act amendments. Now, there's a host of proposed amendments which have been basically approved by Cabinet. All the administrative processes have now been finalized. It's ready for submission to Parliament. We can't see any kind of stumbling block in Parliament to its passing, so this is coming. And I'm obviously not going to be able to run through all of these, but we can start with something scary for the chief executive of a mining house. Section 2A1 of the Act has always dealt with duties of the CEO. This is now being amended. Historically, it included words like the CEO had to take reasonable steps. That has now been removed. The burden becomes absolute. We can have a look at Section 7 of the Act. Now, Section 7.2 and 7.4, again, those with legal appointments, this should look familiar, is where the employer or a manager may delegate. And basically, the amendment now means that whatever is not delegated by the CEO, including environmental hygiene and environmental engineering issues, if something is not formally delegated, that liability and responsibility remains with the chief executive. Section 86A, Section 86.2, read with Section 92. Now, those are the historical punishment clauses and provisions. Scary topic. The punishment in terms of a financial impact increases to 10% of the turnover of the business of the employer. So not 10% of profit after tax for a given mine, but 10% of the turnover of the business of the employer. This can close mines. So, ladies and gents, that is the scary background to this. There's one more element to it. The appointment of an occupational hygiene practitioner has always been mandatory. It's not something that comes to us that is new. Historically, I had to appoint as the employer an occupational hygienist where dictated by risk assessment or where dictated by legislation for a given exposure. That has now changed. It says that we will appoint basically occupational hygienists. The only caveat now is basically to say that you will appoint an occupational hygienist and you will have to appoint additional persons to assist that individual where significant risk remains. In other words, we know that from a regulator's perspective, they would like us to appoint and employ more occupational hygienists, and the employer's only defense for not appointing further hygienists would basically be to show that I have a system that addresses the level of exposure to occupational hygiene and environmental engineering issues to an acceptable level without having to appoint extras. How do we do that? We will have to leverage technology. Then we can also look at the regulations. Now, this is not new. If we look at Chapter 9 of the Mine Health and Safety Act regulations, Regulation 9.2 specifically talks about early warning systems. And again, it uses the words where significant risk has been identified, right? And then states that in an example like that, early warning systems must be provided. So what is the burden of proof? What is the impact? The impact is that I would have to prove that steps had been taken to identify significant risk, and secondly, that I have implemented systems to guard against it. Again, this is where we will have to rely on technology. So what we've done up to now is to have a very brief look at the main legislation, being the Mine Health and Safety Act, and what the impact would be in liability in terms of occupational hygiene from a very high level perspective. We have also had a look at the regulations, which are not new, but we are seeing an increased impetus in enforcing the provisions of early warning systems in a mining environment. Now, close on the heels of that, at the end of 2024, in the various provinces, we had special instructions issued by the various principal inspectors of mines. Now, it's not my intention to look at the kind of legal status of that instruction. There are questions. It's not my intention to look at the fact that the different provinces published and issued at different dates. What we have to do, however, is to identify, number one, what the legal status of an instruction is. And it's very clear. If we look at Section 1 and 2 of the Mine Health and Safety Act, now that is where we find the definitions that are applicable in terms of the Act. It is very clear in what a reference to this Act, being the Mine Health and Safety Act, means. And it specifically includes that an instruction from the Chief Inspector or a Principal Inspector, or for that matter, a Medical Inspector, is part of this Act. In other words, a contravention of that would constitute a contravention of the main legislation. Now, I don't have to state the obvious. We know that we are in a situation where the enforcement of the legislation is increased in the draft bill. The means to enforce is simplified, but the potential punishments are dramatically increased as well. So it means that this instruction, in terms of continuous monitoring, ultimately becomes extremely important. Now, be clear that not everything contained in the document that was issued is a part of the instruction. There's a lot of context, there's a lot of background information, some of which I personally agree with, some of which I might not necessarily agree with. But basically, if we look at the instruction portion of it, and I'm going to quote it, It states the following. It reads, the employer must prohibit employees from being exposed to airborne pollutants, thermal stress, and noise levels that exceed occupational exposure limits. And if any employee is found to be exposed to levels at or above those limits, the employer must immediately withdraw the employee from the affected workplace until the necessary remedial measures are implemented in consultation with the health and safety rep, etc., etc., etc. In other words, there is a very clear obligation placed on the employer, right? And that is to monitor, to identify, and immediately act, right? In addition, the instruction also specifically deals with abandoned and mined out areas as being associated with higher or increased levels of risk. And again, it specifically prescribes monitoring without limiting the instructions to only these exposures for, number one, continuous monitoring of airflow rates. Secondly, the continuous monitoring of temperature. Thirdly, gas detection. And in the fourth place, fire hazard monitoring. So again, very clear. The instruction further sets out specific timeframes, which include, number one, the plan and prepare phase as being 0 to 6 months. Now, note that the timing of this was for October last year. And then secondly, the phase for implementation, which is set at 6 to 12 months following the publication of that instruction. So, yes, I think as an industry, this is something we have to grapple with. And yes, certainly from a legal perspective, there's some consultation, there's some discussion that will take place with the regulator. But what is very clear from what I've just mentioned is that for us as a mining industry, we will have to ensure, in other words, measure, that operations understand the scope of the legal requirements for occupational hygiene, environmental engineering and monitoring. That secondly, once we understand what those obligations are in law, and I'm not talking about best practices being the ultimate goal, we're talking about that first step. Secondly, we would have to measure the current state of legal compliance per mine, per operation with the requirements identified in law. And then obviously, thirdly, we have to update processes and procedures and adopt technology where required. I just need to add another reference here, and I know this is very brief, but ultimately the legal burden of proof that any employer will face, that any GM, that any manager, and ultimately also the appointed occupational hygienist or environmental engineer, the burden of care, the duty that I would have to prove I've complied with, ultimately is to prove that I've acted as far as is reasonably practicable. And what is very telling is that the definition of reasonably practicable specifically includes the duty to have a look at the state of knowledge available in the industry, not only insofar as the hazard or the risk, but also in terms of the measures that are available, including technology, to address and remediate. So for me, although I'm not qualified to talk about occupational hygiene and environmental engineering as a science, although I'm not qualified to talk about the technical elements of how we monitor and we measure and we alarm, what I can say is that categorically as an industry, we are moving into a direction where we are either going to be early adopters of technology or we will be forced by the regulator ultimately to adopt whether we want to or not. And the elephant in the room is what happened with CAS Level 9 and collision protection and avoidance. So, ladies and gents, I know that this is extremely brief. I will participate in the session, hopefully to try and answer questions should there be any. But this is not a quick fix, and I definitely foresee that we will have to consult on this. I thank you very much for your time. I look forward to engaging with you, and I really hope you take something from this webinar. Thank you very much.
To sections 2 and 3 of this webinar. My name is TJ. I have been working at Conspit Controls for over 14 years. 10 of those years have been as an engineer on the product development group, and the last 4 years I've been the International Business Development Manager. Conspit Controls has been in the gas monitoring and industrial controls field for over 57 years. We have offices in Canada, the United States, as well as partners such as Ramjack Technology Solutions representing us worldwide. Here at Conspit Controls, we are in the life safety industry. Our products and applications are designed to help increase productivity, reduce downtime, while ensuring and improving safety to your operations. We also help you manage your risk and ensure compliance. Start off with the role of ventilation in mine safety. Air quality is critical to the safety of the miner. Miners underground can easily be exposed to harmful gases and dust. Gases come in two major categories: combustibles and toxic gases. Combustibles, such as methane, propane, and other LELs, under the right conditions can be explosive, not only a safety issue to the mine, but all the mine equipment and infrastructure. Toxic gases such as CO and CO2 are more harmful to the miners only. High concentrations of various gases can cause instant death, and prolonged exposure to lower concentrations of various gases can cause long-term health issues. Various types of dust have also shown to have long-term health effects. How can we know what our miners are being exposed to if we aren't monitoring and tracking, both in real time and for long-term exposure, the various gases and dust that are present underground? Let's talk a little bit about mining ventilation systems. Many traditional ventilation systems are set up to always be running. Without adequate instrumentation, it's hard to say how effective this methodology is. It also uses a lot of power, which can be very expensive. Modern, efficient ventilation systems use a more on-demand methodology. The main fans are always running, but the auxiliary fans are running as required. Ventilation systems should behave like thermostats. Imagine a thermostat. The heating isn't always on. The thermostat checks the air temperature, and if it falls below a set point, it turns the heating on. Once the air temperature exceeds the set point, the thermostat turns the heating element off. A mine's ventilation system should behave similarly, thus creating an efficient system that saves on cost, but does not compromise air quality, thus compromising the safety of the miners. How do we achieve an efficient ventilation system that increases productivity, reduces downtime, all the while improving safety to our miners? That's where Conspect Controls and Ramjack Technology Solutions bring their expertise. Using various instrumentation and software, we can help gather the critical data required to understand the air quality underground. Once we have that real-time understanding, we can use our intelligent automation software to automatically control the ventilation system to ensure that it is running efficiently, on demand, and does not at any time compromise the safety of any of the miners underground. We use multi-gas monitors that have CO, CO2, and O2 and other gases to ensure the air is free of toxins and combustibles. We use air velocity monitors to determine the effectiveness of the ventilation fans, and we use our fan controllers to control the fans as required, all through our intelligent automation software packages. Let's now get into section 3 of the webinar, Advanced Gas Monitoring Capabilities. So what makes Conspect's solution different? It's the flexibility our designs offer. Our designs are meant to be infrastructure agnostic. We work with whatever existing infrastructure that you have. This provides a tremendous amount of flexibility in what you can do with the designs and how you use them. So for example, our monitors support different power options, different communications options, both wired and wireless, I/O controls options for depending on what needs you have in terms of I/O, and we have all kinds of sensor support from gases to air velocity to dust to barometric pressure, humidity, and wet bulb temperature. So let's talk a little bit about our applications. So some of the main applications that we've been providing many end users with are things such as post-blast reentry, diesel emissions monitoring, ventilation management, as well as the fan performance verification. So here we have a silver mine in Peru, and what they did was they used our equipment to use for post-blast reentry. The way that post-blast reentry works is that generally now many mines use a set time to wait after every blast before they can send their crew back down. So what we've done is we've designed a monitoring system that works on their existing infrastructure, communications infrastructure, that'll send real-time gas values back to the surface. So here, the mine essentially installed this monitor about 10 meters away from the blast. What they did was they blasted and they watched the readings in real time, and they watched the decay of the gases as it went down. So once they realized that the air quality is safe for the miners to go underground again, they sent their crew back down. What this allowed them to do was to essentially reduce their downtime and increase their productivity, rather than waiting the 45 minutes that they have allocated for the air to clear. Once they recognize that after 17 or 18 minutes the air has in fact properly cleared out, they get that time back to continue their production. Here's another mine, a gold mine in Peru, that's using a multi-gas monitor but doing essentially the same thing. Another silver mine in Peru. And finally, this was just done last week, another silver mine in Peru that's basically using this post-blast reentry to help reduce their downtime and increase their productivity. Here we have another application. This is a nickel mine in Canada, and they're using our multi-gas monitor to check for diesel emissions. So the diesel emissions is essentially CO, NO, and NO2. And what we can do is we can provide a corrected CO reading based on real CO that can be as a result from fire rather than CO that's coming from diesel emissions. Just an added safety feature. So this monitor was installed where there's a lot of diesel activity, and they wanted to see just how much diesel accumulation there is in the air and how much ventilation that area would require. Here is a ventilation management system that's being used in a gold mine in Mexico. So they have these multi-gas monitors running over UHF leaky feeder. So that's the infrastructure that was available at that mine. So we've designed a monitor that runs on battery but communicates over the existing UHF system. So what this mine has done is that they've installed these monitors in about 15 different locations across the mine, and they're using it to determine their ventilation needs throughout the mine based on empirical evidence of air quality that they're getting from the gas monitors. Here's another mine in nickel mine in Canada that's using our air velocity monitors to determine the effectiveness of their fans. Essentially, what they're doing is they're verifying just how much power they're using for their fans and how much CFM they're getting out of it. And this way, it gives them a clear understanding of when the fan is starting to lose performance or when the fan is starting to have problems, because they will see a reduction in CFM, or they'll see a reduction in the airflow, which will give them an understanding that there might be something going on with the fan. Again, using instrumentation, using technology, using real-time data to make intelligent decisions on the operations of your mine. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I will take questions at the end of the webinar session. Thank you.
Well, welcome back, everybody. So let's explore how air quality stations are transforming mining operations by ensuring real-time environmental monitoring, how it helps with optimizing ventilation systems and enhance both safety and productivity. A comprehensive air quality monitoring solutions will comprise of several main technology components. But typically we start off with the data acquisitioning, the actual sensor being able to detect the required gases for that matter, then being able to transmit that information, where we talk about the data distribution, where a sensor will then communicate by means either by a node or a gateway, and translate that information all the way to the office, where we can plug that information into like a management software platform, where we can obtain things like or set up things like specialized dashboards, or being able to set up thresholds that we can put preemptive warnings and so forth, or even on mobile application environments for your phone for that matter. And typically these types of software has the ability to work either in cloud or on-prem. But I'm going to leave that part to Julian a little bit later on, where we'll discuss that more in depth. So let's discuss data acquisitioning first. Air quality data is the foundation of any safety or ventilation and mining departments alike. Monitoring key pollutants like, for instance, oxygen, carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide is essential for maintaining a safe and effective working environment. But air quality monitoring goes beyond just the pollutants. Advanced stations like the Conspex Trio also track stuff like relative humidity, barometric pressure, wet and dry bulb temperature, and air velocity. These additional measurements provide a comprehensive understanding of the atmospheric conditions, empowering teams to make proactive, data-driven decisions to optimize mine operations. For data distribution, communication could be wired or wireless, ensuring a comprehensive and flexible monitoring. Unlike traditional systems that rely only on wired communication, we offer battery-powered and wireless devices. These devices have the ability to reach the phase where monitoring is most crucial and where communication infrastructure is not always available. They also act as multifunctional units, combining gas sensors with, for instance, wet bulb temperatures and air velocity monitors, fan and pump control units, and then the ability to connect them with geotechnical sensors, where we can transmit the data that is logged for those sensors. These all-in-one devices support communication via Wi-Fi, LTE, UHF, VHF, ensuring a comprehensive and flexible monitoring. Management software platforms provide the single source of truth. The software enables the mine to monitor, manage, and analyze the data alike. Having that information in real time allows us to set up alarms, reports, fan controls, evaluate readings, understanding what the sensor status is, and typically allows us then to integrate with third-party software, for instance, like VentSim for that matter. Not only does the software allow to manage the data, but also being able to see the environment within a 3D visualization. Why does it matter to use air quality sensors? Well, safety first. By proactive air quality management safeguards workers and meets regulatory requirements, among with increased productivity by enhanced data insight, enabling smarter decision making, reducing downtime, and maximizing efficiency. Ventilation management enables a mine to deliver cost-effective, flexible, and reliable ventilation decision making, and helping operations reduce energy costs, improve safety, and meet sustainability goals. Some of the challenges within the industry: rising energy costs and government mandates for renewable energy requires more efficient ventilation management. Underground mining operations must optimize their ventilation network to balance cost, safety, and sustainability. Ventilation optimization with fan control, real-time air quality monitoring enables auxiliary fan to be controlled on actual needs, reducing energy usage by avoiding continuous fan operations. They support power consumption reduction while maintaining a safe and efficient airflow. Some of the other benefits are stuff like integration and continuous improvement, seamless integration with software like VentSim for enhanced visualization and control. Stuff like historical data tracking and VB scripting programming enable ongoing system optimization. These systems are all certified quality assurance by means of ISO 9001, IEC 8079. These certifications ensure high standards of reliable and safety. A comprehensive customer support, services and training to protect personal property and profit can be achieved by collaborating with Ramjack Technology Solutions. Next up is Julian, who is going to talk to us about horizontal system integration. This is the software functionalities that's from Reactor. Thank you very much, Julian.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Julian. I'm from a technology company called Reactor, and I'll be discussing the necessity and transformative potential of horizontally integrated solutions for mining safety. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the insightful contributions of the previous speakers. I think they've really set a high bar, and my aim today is really just to build on that foundation by offering a clear pathway for our industry and the audience and the stakeholders to meet the evolving demands of occupational hygiene and safety in mining. Now, before we get into the specifics, let me first highlight the strong partnership between Reactor and Ramjack. Since 2017, we've been collaborating to bring together collective expertise in mining operations and advanced technology. Reactor is a South African-owned software development house specializing and focusing on the mining sector and has developed a solution and a product called Mine One, which we'll be discussing later, while Ramjack focuses, of course, on vertical integration and mining domain expertise. Together, we aim to enhance productivity and safety in mines through technology. Now, let's talk about horizontal integration. Simply put, it's about connecting existing systems and their data to create a unified, holistic approach. Many mines already have systems in place, and often these systems are operating in silos, which leads to operational blind spots and ultimately inefficiencies. For example, you may have a state-of-the-art environmental monitoring system in place, but if it's not linked to your ventilation controls or personal tracking or where people are situated, critical insights are lost and you're missing the opportunity to optimize. Horizontal integration bridges these silos and it enables systems to work together seamlessly, whether it's ventilation, environmental monitoring, production tracking, or even ERP systems. Horizontal integration consolidates these into a single platform, offering what we like to call a 360-degree view of your operations. Achieving horizontal integration isn't an overnight process. It's an evolutionary process and journey, and we've identified 5 key stages to this outcome. The first and initial requirement, of course, would be reliable foundational infrastructure. Reliable underground data network with redundancies and failovers built in, as this is a mission-critical monitoring solution, is a critical requirement. It's also not to be underestimated, and you shouldn't forget that securing your IT and OT infrastructure to protect against potential threats, such as hackers, for example, is something that should not be ignored. Secondly, in terms of ventilation systems, ideally they should be modern, connectable systems with variable speed fan drives. Of course, you have to look at introducing proper fan and ducting maintenance procedures. Typically, this should be system driven, and our systems do provide the means to do so to ensure optimal performance. A nice to have would be, of course, to include integration with ventilation simulation systems, and this allows for planning and using data-driven decisions for fan placement and airflow strategies. In terms of environmental monitoring, as indicated wonderfully by our colleague and associate from Conspec earlier today, you'd need to have means to track gas detection, dust levels, airflow, temperature, and humidity, and these systems should, of course, provide critical data needed to ensure worker safety and regulatory compliance. And your environmental monitoring systems and your ventilation control system should ideally be integrated. Now, all of these integrations will be useful, but now coupling this with where your personnel are located is invaluable. And this can be achieved through a variety of solutions offered by Ramjack and Reactor that involves personal tracking. And this can be achieved through RFID, Bluetooth, ultra-wideband, GPS, etc. And tracking data really aids in ventilation control. It helps with emergency workflows and even resource allocation. It also opens opportunities for better workflow management and safety interventions such as evacuation procedures if needed. And the so-called icing on the cake would be ultimate semi or complete ventilation on demand or automation. And as mentioned, it's a spectrum. You can go the fully automated approach, or it can be semi-automated with schedule-based ventilation and fan system activation. But ultimately, we're looking at fan activation based on either environmental conditions or personal proximity to an area, and thus resulting in optimized energy efficiency and safety. This simplified visualization really unpacks what ventilation on demand really entails. And it may look simple, but ultimately what you're looking at is potentially 3 or 4 different systems. You have your underground data network, you have your personal tracking solution or system, you have your ventilation systems and fan control systems, which might be different providers as well. And of course, your environmental monitoring, instrumentation and sensors, which can also be from a variety of vendors and OEMs. And what we offer is complete horizontal integration with all these disparate systems. And we can introduce additional systems such as tracking when needed. And ultimately what happens is ventilation systems are only activated when needed. When personnel are approaching, they are detected, the fans are activated in conjunction and combination with environmental readings as well. And all of this tied up into a neat bow and visualized in a system that can be deployed in a control room environment as depicted here with an isometric 3D view of the mining operation to see the status of your personnel, where they are, and the ventilation systems and the environmental conditions. Speaking of a control room, this is the recommended approach, and this is not a prescriptive layout, but certainly every mine is different and different requirements and different number of screens and different sizes, but ultimately various dashboards focusing on different areas, such as ventilation on demand, personal tracking, cap lamp allocation, environmental monitoring, and very importantly, an alerts and notification center. And we spoke about horizontal integration. It's important to be aware of the integrity of these integrations. So a services and integrations monitoring dashboard that we provide is critical to ensure that the system health and integrity is monitored at all times so that you can rely on what you're seeing. Taking a bit of the focus onto the software itself, as mentioned, we've developed a software platform called Mine1. And because we're speaking about horizontal integration, one of the cornerstones of our platform is its ability to integrate with various technologies. It's completely agnostic and integration orientated. It's also a platform-driven solution and therefore is highly customizable and scalable. I would argue that Mine1 is one of the most customizable mining solutions on the market. It is 100% customizable. What does that mean? It means that every mine will have a system or solution which is tailored to their particular needs. It's not just an off-the-shelf solution. In terms of visualization, as previously indicated, we offer interactive 3D dashboards, which make the lives of control room operators much easier in interpreting the data and having enhanced situational awareness. But it's not just an integration and visualization package. It also has its own features for managing ventilation and tracking. You can track personnel, you can manage your fan maintenance, status and the scheduling of inspections and work orders, your fan control itself, both that be manual or automated, alarm configurations and a notification center, environmental monitoring, and of course a library of reports. All of this powered by our robust built-in intelligence, which is also highly customizable, various algorithms which can be tweaked, workflows which can be adjusted for example, for emergency procedures and alarm escalations, and of course, energy optimization algorithms. I'd now like to show you a quick 30-second demonstration of our VOD solution in action.
Smart cap lamp allocation is automated in the allocation management software, thus reducing process time significantly. As personnel approaches a wireless access point, it detects their proximity. The strobe flashes to indicate that it has recognized the nearby cap lamp. Up in the control room, real-time tracking of personnel and fan status is.
This video clip is actually an excerpt from a much larger video, which Ramjack will be releasing this year. But what you've seen is a fully integrated system that combines personal tracking with automated fan activation. As the personnel move to the mine, the system dynamically detects them and adjusts the ventilation status based on their proximity. This, of course, will result in ensuring energy efficiency and safety. And this is just one small example of how horizontal integration can potentially transform your operation, making it safer, more efficient, and ultimately more cost-effective. I'll wrap it up with 6 to 8 key benefits of really incorporating a horizontally integrated environmental monitoring and ventilation on-demand system. The first and primary and most obvious benefit would be your advanced safety. This is through real-time tracking and automated ventilation, which provides situational awareness and ultimately reduces the risks and exposure that personnel will face to potentially hazardous conditions. A second major benefit is, of course, significant cost savings. Reduced energy consumption and optimized fan operations lowers operational costs significantly and ultimately can pay for the system itself and the solution in a matter of weeks or months, if not weeks. You're looking at improved operational efficiency. This is an indirect benefit, but systems integrations, eliminating silos, enables better decision-making and resource allocation and management. Increased equipment lifespan, proper maintenance and usage optimization will extend the life of critical ventilation equipment. Your fans aren't running continuously, and our systems offer the means for maintenance teams to schedule and track the maintenance activities relating to the equipment, thus getting the best bang for your buck when it comes to the life of your assets. The solution, because it already is horizontally integrated, will obviously have the means to upgrade and integrate with additional systems as they're introduced, such as wearable technology that workers can have, smart PPE, for example, or your geotech systems or production systems, whatever you may need. You're looking at a future-proof system which is scalable and ready for whatever future needs may arise, as the regulations will in themselves may also evolve. Speaking of regulations, the system will of course result ultimately in assisting with regulatory compliance. It provides transparency that the controls are being put in place as per government regulations to mitigate the risks faced by the personnel and allows for the means to run audits to check the veracity of these controls, which essentially it keeps you compliant and safe from the eyes of the law. Another indirect benefit would be improved workforce productivity. If personnel are having better ventilation and environmental conditions through these controls and systems that you're putting in place, you're looking at reduced fatigue and better overall health. And with a system that's using operational awareness, you're obviously going to have better and more tighter control of what's happening in your mining operation. And the final sort of benefit category would be your ESG and sustainability side of things. With optimized energy, you're looking to reduce your CO2 emissions, and this would support any environmental initiatives that the mining group may be committed to. So in conclusion, horizontally integrated VOD and environmental monitoring solutions is more than just something of a technological upgrade. It's a paradigm shift. It's a transformative approach to mining safety and efficiency. And I'll remind us all of the very important but simple saying that digitalization is not just a thing, a silver bullet. It is a way of doing things. And with that closing thought, and on behalf of Reactor and Ramjack, I'd like to thank you all for your time and attention today. My colleague Baron will now take over to address any questions you might have. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Julian, Yaku, and TJ for your contribution with your presentations. The floor is currently open now for any questions that any of the attendees would have. You'll just have to unmute your radio and then you're welcome to fire away with your questions. In the meantime, while there's no questions as of yet coming through, I see there's one or two typing at the moment. Maybe a question towards Yaku. Yaku, having understand the regional notifications that went out to the various mines, what is the time frame for response on those requirements? The document that I sent through to you with regards to, for instance, Limpopo, and I believe that the Western Cape has also received the same legislative document.
Yeah, Baron, thanks very much for the question. And I think in my initial comments, I kind of said that there are a couple of questions surrounding the actual instruction. Now, in terms of the time frame, it is quite clear. It allows for a 0 to 6 months, that first kind of process to prepare, and then the implementation process, which would then follow within a year after that. So from a strict legal perspective, in whatever province that is, that would obviously be the date of the issue of that instruction. One of the interesting issues with it is normally a chief inspector's instruction would come from the office of the chief inspector. In other words, by default, it would cover the full scope of the jurisdiction, being the whole of the country. So it's quite interesting that it was rolled out per province, and that there are different dates for it. So my advice to the different mining houses obviously would be to have a look at that specific instruction, to engage with the DMPR in the province. But the fact of the matter is, an instruction that is given is a part of the Act. It is a legal document, and it does have legal standing. So, Warren, yeah, I do suggest that individual mining houses look at the individual instructions.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for your feedback on that. Maybe a next question that I see here, it's related to Julian. Julian, integrating, you've spoken about horizontal integration with vertical silos lying next to each other with regards to how do we combine something like ventilation on demand or gas monitoring with personnel tracking. Is the, just for interest sake, the ability to do so within your software? Would you like to just elaborate a little bit further on that for us?
Sure. Thank you, Byron, for that question. I certainly didn't have much time in the presentation to go into too much detail, but from a platform perspective, the Mine1 solution really has the means to, as an agnostic platform, to connect with what the mine already has. So a mine may already have some form of tracking solutions, or ventilation or environmental monitoring, or some of them. What we can do is essentially integrate with these data sources using our technology, which has a variety of options for integration. It can be API based, it can be through industrial protocols, SCADA, PLC, Modbus, Profinet, whatever the case may be. We have a huge library of connectors that we've already connected with some leading systems. And of course, everything that was discussed in this discussion, including Conspect and other systems that Ramjack offer. But from our side, we can connect with what the mine already has, and then supplement with additional value-added systems where needed, such as the ones suggested by Ramjack. And our system has that means to do that inherently. From the day one, that's how it was architected to solve these problems and achieve a horizontal integration.
Thank you very much, Julian. I appreciate. Maybe the last question that I'm going to send towards TJ's side. TJ, Conspect, you've mentioned, has been in the business of keeping miners safe from environmental conditions for the last 57 years. Would you like to just elaborate with regards to location of operations, the time that you guys been in partnership with Ramjack?
Sure. Well, we've been actually working together with Ramjack pretty much since Ramjack's inception back in 2013. So we've explored and worked at a lot of different sites, a lot of different projects across the world. So with our partnership, our global partnership with Ramjack, right now we have projects in Africa, we have projects in South Africa and West Africa, we have projects in Europe that's ongoing. We have new projects that are opening up in Latin America right now. And of course, with the new addition of the North American offices of Ramjack, we are looking to explore into a lot of the different projects in Northern Ontario, as well as the operations around the Nevada Elko area. So lot of different opportunities, a lot of different minds that we've actually partnered together to deploy hardware and software into, and it's really been a really fluid, dynamic partnership.
Thank you very much, DJ. Ladies and gentlemen, it's right on closing time for us for the webinar time. I appreciate each and every one of you that made the time to be able to attend today's session. The recording would be shareable. We'll be sending out a link where you can request for the recording should you want to hand it over to the powers above or even the people below for that matter. I will also then share the contact details for Jaco Swartz and for Julian alike. TJ can be contacted via Ramjack, but I will also share the contact details if you do have any specific questions that you would want to relate to them. Again, from a Ramjack side of things, I appreciate your time.
Varun,
Yes, you.
I think just before you go, there's a question there under Q&A. Maybe you might need to address.
Okay, thank you very much for raising that. So the question reads, what is the primary challenges mining companies encounter when implementing sustainable ventilation systems, such as a balancing upfront costs with long-term benefits, adapting to a variety of regulatory standards, or integrating the existing infrastructure? Additionally, how can strategic partnerships, technology innovation, and support policy help address these challenges to ensure both long-term environmental sustainability and safety of miners? I appreciate Hendrix for the question. It's a really good question. I'm going to try and break it down because there's a couple of questions within a question here. So some of the primary challenges that we typically see with implementation is obviously the importance of some form of a backhaul communication environment, being able to get that data real time. Sorry. As I've mentioned in my presentation, and I've seen that TJ and Julian also relate to that, is that for proper optimized system to work, we need to have the data real time. And the ability for that requires that there needs to be some form of a backhaul. Now, if there's not for that, for the instance, Ramjack is able to offer various communication solutions within that space, or alternatively, we can do a site evaluation and evaluate with you what will work on your mine for that matter, what is the existing infrastructure that you have. The second question basically lies to balancing the upfront costs with long-term benefits. As mentioned before, that the systems are scalable, so we can start off very minimalistic and then expand them out as you would require on your mine. I think from a cost perspective, Ramjack does have the ability to offer a capex and opex a model for any of our implementations. So that's something that we can discuss directly with you on the mine. And then you're talking about additional, how can strategic partners, technology innovation, and supportive policies help address these challenges to ensure both long-term environmental sustainability and safety of miners. So it's a collective effort. We've mentioned that Ramjack is a pragmatic company that turns towards collaboration with the mine. So we have the expertise and the understanding as to the various types of tools in our toolbox, and it doesn't mean that a 13 spanner will work for each and every one of those solutions. Hence why the ability that we have multiple technology OTM partners or original technology manufacturers for that matter, that we can go back to and source the correct solution for what your requirements would be. And I think ultimately with the knowledge and expertise within the Ramjack team, we have the ability to provide you with multiple options with regards to that, taking that expertise and sitting down with a client and collaborating together and making a decision as to what would suit best for your mine, because no mine is exactly the same as the one next to it. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Hendricks. And then lastly, I see there's another question, guys. I don't want to keep you too long. Does Ramjack employ people from physics background? Or sorry if the question is not related to the topic of discussion, but I really enjoy the presentation by all the speakers. So can you share advice and roles I can consider? Yeah, again, very great question. I presume you are maybe new to the industry or the mining industry for that matter, but definitely, I mean, I think we are always looking for innovative, hungry young people within the mining market, being able to raise their hand and saying that they are willing to learn and adopt new skills. Please reach out to us, and then we can take it from there. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm gonna let you all go now. As I've mentioned, the recording would be shared with each and every one of you. Thanks a lot for attending.